At the airport, after an argument, my parents and sister canceled my ticket and left me stranded in Europe. No boarding pass, no phone, no way to call for help. A man who looked like a multimillionaire, impeccably dressed, walked toward me and whispered, "Pretend you're my wife. My driver is about to arrive." Then he added with a cold smile, "Trust me, they'll regret this." And he was right. I had no idea just how right. My name is Joyce Romero, and I'm 38 years old. That day at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, everything shattered in seconds. We'd flown in as a family, my parents, my sister, and me, for a trip I'd helped fund heavily, hoping it would fix the cracks after my divorce. But at the check-in counter, the fight erupted fast. I said no to sending more money home right away. I was finally prioritizing my own savings. They turned on me instantly. Selfish, unstable, always a source of worry. My sister had taken my phone and charger earlier, for group photos. My mom had my passport to handle all the documents together. When they collected their boarding passes and headed to security, I realized my return ticket was gone. They'd canceled it coldly, saying I could figure things out on my own. Without a backward glance, they disappeared through the gate. I stood frozen, heart pounding, realizing I'd been set up. No phone to call anyone, no boarding pass to follow. I rushed to the help desk, explaining desperately, but security stepped in, telling me to leave the restricted area. That's when he approached the stranger in the sharp suit who'd clearly been watching my struggle. He leaned close and delivered those exact words. In that moment of pure desperation, I gripped his hand and followed him out. As the limousine pulled away from the terminal, I glanced back at the fading lights, a cold resolve building inside. They thought they'd left me broken, but they were wrong. If you've ever felt betrayed by family in a way that changed everything, or wondered how far people would go for control, share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if trust turned into abandonment? Like that, I read every comment. Let's hear your stories. The limousine glided smoothly through the darkened streets of Paris, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. I sat in the back seat next to the stranger who had just pulled me from the brink, my mind racing as I tried to process what had happened. The driver up front remained silent, focused on the road, while the man beside me stared ahead for a moment before turning to me. "I suppose introductions are in order?" He said, his voice calm and measured with a faint American accent. "Alexander Hayes, 42. I run a real estate group based in New York." I nodded, still gripping my small carry-on bag like a lifeline. "Joyce Romero." I replied, my words coming out steadier than I felt. 38. Thank you for whatever this is." He gave a slight smile, not warm, but genuine enough. "I saw you at the help desk. You weren't panicking outwardly, you were trying to fix it yourself. That caught my eye. Most people would have broken down completely." I glanced at him, surprised by the observation. He had been watching longer than I realized. I didn't have much choice. Security was about to escort me out. Alexander leaned back against the leather seat. "Exactly. Resourceful. That's why I stepped in. I need someone like that for a short time." He paused as the car turned onto a quieter avenue, then continued. "In a couple of weeks, I have a major charity gala in New York. It's not just fundraising, it's where I close a big development deal with conservative partners. They value stability, tradition. A widowed man in his early 40s still grieving. It makes them nervous. They worry about emotional decisions affecting business." I listened, piecing it together. "And that's where the pretend wife part comes in." "Precisely," he said. "My wife died 2 years ago in a car accident. It's public knowledge. My younger brother Nathan has been using it to stir doubt inside the company, suggesting I'm not fit to lead anymore. A stable marriage appearance would shut that down temporarily." The mention of loss hit close. I thought about my own divorce, the way it had left me rebuilding everything alone. "I'm sorry about your wife." He acknowledged it with a nod but didn't dwell. "It's business. I need a partner for the event. Someone believable, not an actress who'd come off scripted. I shifted in my seat, the reality sinking in. And you picked me, a complete stranger stranded at an airport. You handled yourself well under pressure, he repeated. That's rare. The car slowed as we approached a private terminal outside the main airport. Alexander outlined the deal plainly. You play the role for the gala and related events. In return, I get you back to the States tonight on my jet, provide secure housing in my Manhattan penthouse, $50,000 in cash, and a new phone. Plus, I'll help you figure out what your family is really up to. Something about that abandonment felt calculated. $50,000. The number landed heavily. It was more than I'd saved in the last year. But I wasn't ready to jump blindly. What's the risk for me? If this is just business for you, why trust me not to talk? He met my eyes directly. Fair question. I don't. But the agreement would include confidentiality on both sides. And honestly, I'm in a weak spot too. Nathan has dug up a couple of recent deals where grief might have clouded my judgment, one investment that didn't pan out as planned. He's building a case against me internally. I need this to buy time. His honesty surprised me. He wasn't presenting himself as invincible. I weighed at the immediate safety, the money, the chance to uncover whatever my parents and sister were planning. After years of putting their needs first, this felt like taking control back. One more thing, I said firmly. My identity stays protected. No real names in public if possible, and I get final say on what stories we tell about us. Alexander considered it, then extended his hand. Deal. We shook on it as the limousine stopped at the private hangar. A sleek jet waited on the tarmac, engines already warming. We boarded quickly, the cabin luxurious but understated, plush seats, dim lighting. I buckled in as the plane taxied, exhaustion finally hitting. Alexander worked on his laptop across from me, giving space. I closed my eyes, the hum of the engines lulling me. For the first time that day, I wasn't alone in crisis. Sleep came easier than expected. When the jet touched down in New York hours later, the sky was turning light with dawn. A discreet car met us on the runway, driving straight into the city. We pulled up to a high-rise in Manhattan, the doorman nodding familiarly to Alexander. Inside the private elevator, he said quietly, "Elena Morales, my housekeeper, will show you to a guest suite. Get some rest." The doors opened to the penthouse, spacious, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. Elena, a warm woman in her 50s, greeted us softly and led me down a hallway to a beautifully appointed room. As she left me to settle in, I stood at the window watching the city wake up below. Tired to my core, but for the first time in hours, a spark of possibility flickered. I had made a choice on my own terms. The guest suite felt like a sanctuary after the chaos, soft lighting, crisp sheets, and a view of the city that made everything below seem distant. I showered quickly, letting the hot water wash away the grime of travel and shock, then changed into comfortable clothes Elena had laid out. The new phone Alexander provided sat on the nightstand, fully charged and ready. I picked it up without hesitation, scrolling to the only contact I'd added so far. Diane Russell, my cousin, who'd always been more like a sister when things got tough with my own family. She answered on the second ring, her voice laced with worry. "Joyce. Oh my God, where have you been? Your parents called me 3 times already." I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the phone tighter. "I'm safe. In New York, actually." "What did they say?" Diane hesitated, then sighed. "They told me you had some kind of breakdown at the airport in Paris, said the stress from the divorce finally caught up, that you were acting paranoid, accusing them of things, and then just walked off without saying where you were going. They're painting it like you're not thinking clearly, that you might hurt yourself or make bad decisions with money." My stomach twisted. "That's not what happened. They canceled my ticket, took my phone." "I believe you," she cut in gently. "But they're not stopping there. Your mom mentioned getting legal help to protect you from yourself. Something about filing for temporary conservatorship. They zeroed in on the condo Grandma and Grandpa left you, the one in Manhattan. Said if you're unstable, someone needs to manage it before you do something reckless. The words hit like ice water. The condo was my only real inheritance, a 2-bedroom in a prime building worth millions, now specifically deeded to me because my grandparents knew how hard I'd worked. They're trying to take control of it. From what I overheard when your dad put me on speaker briefly, yes, they're gathering statements. Old emails where you vented about stress after the divorce, maybe doctor visits for anxiety. In New York, conservatorship isn't automatic, but if they show evidence of incapacity, like inability to manage affairs, a judge could appoint a guardian temporarily. I stood up, pacing the room. At first, doubt crept in. Had my post-divorce meltdowns been that bad, I'd canceled plans last minute, withdrawn sometimes. But then, clarity sharpened. This was calculated building on real vulnerabilities to twist the narrative. Diane, can you forward anything they've sent you? Emails, documents. Already on it, she said, and my phone buzzed with incoming messages, screenshots of drafts, a list of concerns they'd compiled. I scanned them quickly, anger replacing any self-doubt. They weren't worried about me. They were positioning themselves as saviors to seize assets. I thanked Diane, promised updates, and hung up. The penthouse was quiet as I headed downstairs, finding Alexander in a modern office off the living area, reviewing papers. I need to talk, I said directly, stepping in. He looked up, setting aside his work. Everything okay? No. I handed him the phone to show the screenshots. My family isn't just upset they're building a case for conservatorship. Using my divorce stress as proof I'm incompetent to handle my own finances, especially the condo inheritance. Alexander scrolled through his expression, turning serious. This is sophisticated. In New York, it's not like California. Conservatorships here are rarer for adults without severe cognitive issues, but possible if they prove grave risk to property or self. They're smart not to claim disappearance. Framing it as mental health concern makes it harder to dismiss outright. I nodded, leaning against the desk. We need to counter this fast. Use your lawyer to file something preemptive, maybe an affidavit of competency, or block any petitions. He didn't hesitate. Martin Coleman, he's the best for asset protection. I'll call him now. Within an hour, Martin arrived, a sharp man in his 50s, briefcase in hand. He listened as I explained, reviewing the forwarded evidence on a secure tablet. They're laying groundwork, Martin said, but we can respond aggressively. Medical evaluation if needed, financial records showing competent management. I'll draft opposition papers tonight. Alexander added quietly. Nathan's pulling similar tactics on me, questioning my capacity based on grief. So we're both vulnerable here. Full transparency, my position isn't ironclad yet. That admission grounded things. I wasn't aligning with someone untouchable. We were both fighting parallel battles. As Martin left with instructions, I returned upstairs and opened the laptop Elena had provided. I pulled up New York guardianship laws, reading about requirements for petitions, hearings, independent evaluators. For the first time, waiting wasn't an option. I had to arm myself with knowledge. Sitting there in the quiet room, screen glowing in the dim light, a shift settled deep inside. Protecting what was mine meant acting now, not hoping others would. The gala planning kicked into high gear from the moment Alexander assembled his core team in the penthouse conference room. Spreadsheets and vendor contracts covered the table, coffee steaming in mugs as everyone dove in. I didn't wait to be asked. Mind if I take a look at the program timeline? I said, pulling a chair up beside the lead coordinator. She slid it over without question. Within minutes, I spotted overlaps, 2 keynote speakers scheduled too close, risking delays that could ripple through the entire evening. This needs shifting. I pointed out, marking adjustments with quick notes. Move the auction segment earlier. It energizes the crowd before dinner. The coordinator raised an eyebrow but nodded. Alexander watched from across the table, saying nothing yet, clearly noting the change. By the end of that first meeting, I'd restructured the guest seating to avoid awkward placements, putting rival developers far apart, while grouping potential partners near each other for natural networking. When a major sponsor emailed concerns about committing fully, citing whispers of instability in Alexander's leadership, I asked to see the thread. Reading the exchanges, I drafted a response on the spot, personalized, acknowledging their long history with the company, while highlighting upcoming projects with solid projections. "Send this," I told the team. "It addresses the doubt, without defensiveness." The sponsor replied positively within hours, increasing their pledge. Alexander pulled me aside afterward. "You're making yourself indispensable." "Good," I replied, "because I'm not here to stand pretty." He gave a short laugh, the first real one I'd heard from him. From then on, he looped me into every decision. I took charge of the reception area layout, next walking the hotel venue myself to map flow, ensuring entry points avoided bottlenecks, placing signature displays where they'd catch eyes immediately upon arrival. Coordinating with the lighting crew, I insisted on warmer tones for the cocktail hour, transitioning to cooler spotlights during speeches to keep energy focused. Alexander opened up more during late sessions. One evening, reviewing budget overruns, he admitted a recent investment flop, a property deal pushed through too quickly after his wife's death. "Nathan's circling it as proof I'm not thinking straight," he said, rubbing his temple. "He's right that grief clouded things, but wrong about my ability to recover." I leaned forward. "Then show recovery. Pull projections for the next quarter, highlight corrections already in motion." He considered it, then incorporated my suggestion into the board update. We rehearsed public appearances relentlessly, walking into mock rooms arm in arm, fielding imagined questions from reporters. Our cover story meeting at a real estate conference in Chicago years ago felt scripted at first. "Too stiff," I said after one run-through. "Make it casual. I was handling event logistics for the venue you complained about, the coffee we bonded over, bad catering, horror stories." Alexander tried it, adding his own twist about spilling said coffee on my notes. It landed naturally, even drew a genuine smile from him. As deadlines tightened, I handled vendor escalations, personally negotiating with the florist when deliveries ran late, calming the caterer over last-minute dietary requests from VIPs. Alexander deferred to my calls more often, trusting the instincts honed from years managing high-stakes corporate events. The night before the gala, I ran a final walkthrough at the venue, a lone checklist in hand. Every detail aligned, signage positioned perfectly, tech rehearsals, flawless contingency plans for weather or no-shows locked in. Back at the penthouse, trying on the gown Elena had helped select, elegant navy silk that fit like it was made for me, I caught my reflection. The woman staring back moved with purpose, eyes sharp. Work had pulled me out of survival mode into something stronger, control, earned through competence. Tomorrow's event wasn't just Alexander's test, it was mine too. The grand ballroom of the Manhattan Hotel buzzed with anticipation as Alexander and I stepped through the entrance, cameras flashing from the step-and-repeat backdrop. We moved together seamlessly, his hand lightly at my back, my smile practiced but genuine enough to pass scrutiny. Guests in tuxedos and gowns mingled under crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes clinking while a string quartet played softly in the corner. Everything felt aligned until midway through cocktails, when Alexander's phone vibrated with an alert from his PR team. A tabloid had just republished old rumors about his instability post-widowhood, quoting an anonymous source close to the company, claiming recent deals showed poor judgment. We both knew the source, Nathan feeding the narrative. The team's prepared statement went out immediately, a firm denial emphasizing strong performance metrics and forward momentum. It contained the spread somewhat, but whispers rippled through the room. One key partner, a conservative investor from Texas named Harlan Reed, pulled back visibly, his conversation turning polite but distant when Alexander approached about finalizing the development contract. I watched from across the cluster, reading Harlan's body language, arms, crossed eyes, avoiding direct commitment. Excusing myself from a group of donors, I made my way over glass in hand. "Mr. Reed," I said, smoothly extending a hand. "Joyce Hayes. I've been handling some of the event coordination tonight, but I'm also involved in the project details." He shook it cautiously. "Pleasure. Heard a lot about the waterfront proposal. Good things, I hope." I kept my tone light but direct. "I know the recent article stirred questions. Off the record, those sources have agendas. The numbers don't lie, though." I pulled up discrete slides on my phone, preloaded projections I'd insisted on having ready. "Look here. Revised occupancy forecasts, post-adjustment risk mitigation on the last deal already yielding positive cash flow this quarter." Harlan scrolled, eyebrows lifting as he absorbed the data. "These corrections weren't public." "Not yet," I replied. "But they're real. Alexander doesn't hide from setbacks, he fixes them. That's why this partnership makes sense." He paused, glancing toward Alexander mingling nearby. The doubt lingered, but I pressed gently. "We've built in tighter oversight clauses if it eases concerns. Long-term, this project's positioned for 20% above market returns." Harlan handed back the phone. "Fair points. Let's talk specifics after the auction." The rest of the evening flowed better, bidding lively speeches well received. Harlan signed the contract before dessert, though, with added review milestones that tightened terms slightly. Still, it closed a win, if guarded. As the crowd thinned, Alexander and I slipped out to the waiting car, the city lights streaking past once more. "That article escalation," he said quietly, loosening his tie. "Nathan timed it perfectly. It'll give him more ammunition for his suit proof of external doubt affecting deals." I nodded, staring out the window. The contract got signed anyway. "Thanks to you," he admitted. "But damage lingers. I need something stronger to counter the narrative of isolation and poor judgment." He turned to me fully. "Marry me on paper. 1-year contract. It creates undeniable proof of stability, a committed relationship, shared life. Courts and boards respect that." The proposal landed heavy, practical, yet profound. I didn't flinch. "Terms?" I asked evenly. "Full financial compensation, 300,000 plus continued role in projects. Legal protection for your assets, too." I considered the layers protection for both of us against family attacks. I set conditions. Exit clause, anytime, no questions. I control my public image and statements. And I keep the Hayes name if I choose after dissolution or not. Alexander studied me for a moment, then agreed. "All of it. Martin can draft tomorrow." The car pulled into the underground garage. Days later at City Hall, a plain office with fluorescent lights, and a bored clerk, we signed the register. No ceremony, just witnesses and stamps. As Joyce Hayes on the certificate, I folded it carefully. This wasn't rescue anymore. It was armor I'd helped forge, shielding my future on terms I defined. The move to the Hamptons house happened smoothly, boxes unpacked by staff while I focused on settling into the new rhythm. The property sat on a quiet stretch of beachfront modern glass walls opening to dunes and ocean, far enough from Manhattan to escape daily scrutiny. Alexander suggested the change for privacy as media interest lingered after the gala. I agreed. The distance felt like breathing room. My role shifted quickly from temporary to substantive. The company was developing a luxury resort complex along the coast, and Alexander brought me into strategy sessions from day one. I dove into market reports comparing occupancy trends for similar properties in the area. One afternoon in the home office overlooking the water, I flagged gaps. Guest feedback from competitors shows demand for more wellness-focused amenities. I said, sliding printed summaries across the desk. Spa expansion and yoga pavilions could boost off-season bookings by 15%. He reviewed my notes, then incorporated them into the architect revisions that week. Design meetings followed virtual calls with the team, where I pushed for guest flow improvements based on past event layouts. I'd managed wider pathways for events, flexible indoor-outdoor spaces to handle weather shifts. High-end clients want seamless transitions, I explained during one session. No bottlenecks between dining and entertainment areas. The lead designer adjusted plans accordingly. Martin Coleman called with updates on the guardianship front. Your family filed the preliminary petition. They're citing pre-divorce emails complaining about stress, a couple of canceled appointments as erratic behavior. It's thin but enough for an initial hearing. Wilk. I pulled old records, immediately performance reviews from my event planning days, tax returns showing steady income management, even client testimonials praising reliability. Send these as counter evidence, I instructed Martin. Affidavits from former colleagues, too, prove consistent competence. He filed them promptly, stalling any quick approval. Alexander faced escalation on his side. Nathan submitted formal papers claiming incapacity, referencing the same investment misstep plus the gala rumors as pattern. Late nights became routine documents spread across the dining table under warm lamps. I helped organize his defense financial audits, demonstrating recovery's board minutes, showing sound ongoing decisions. One evening, exhaustion evident in his posture, Alexander set down a folder. Grief did hit hard, he confessed. That deal, I rushed it, ignoring red flags because staying busy felt better than facing empty evenings. I pushed a revised timeline toward him. Then highlight the fixes: divestment completed, new safeguards in contracts. Turn the narrative to resilience. He implemented every suggestion, strengthening the response Martin prepared. Those sessions built quiet trust. We challenged each other's ideas without offense, refining arguments until they held firm. I handled outreach to independent evaluators. Martin recommended scheduling assessments that confirmed my mental fitness without issue. Alexander attended strategy calls for his case, incorporating my input on framing recovery narratives. The ocean view from the study became backdrop to focused work waves crashing as we cross-checked legal briefs. Martin's final update arrived during a break phone on speaker. Your parents learned about the marriage through public records. They're convinced it's proof of manipulation. Booked flights, they're coming to talk sense into you before things go further. The line went quiet after he hung up. I stared at the screen, resolve hardening. They weren't done trying to pull strings. The doorbell rang mid-morning, sharp and insistent. Elena answered, then hurried back to the study where I was reviewing resort blueprints with Alexander. Your family? She said quietly. They're here. I set down the plans. Alexander stood immediately. I'll stay out of sight unless you need me. This is your conversation. I nodded, walking to the foyer alone. Martin Coleman waited in the hallway, briefcase ready. Robert Romero stepped in first. Linda right behind Angela, trailing with eyes downcast. No hugs, no pleasantries, just tension thick enough to choke. You've gone too far, Robert said, voice low but firm. Marrying a man you barely know. Hiding here like you're above us, Linda chimed in. We came to bring you home. Your mental health is fragile, we're trying to help. I stood straight, arms crossed. Help by filing for conservatorship. That's what this is about. Robert's jaw tightened. You disappeared in Paris, refused contact. We had to act to protect your assets, the condo grandma left you. Angela shifted eyes, flicking up then away. I gestured toward Martin. My lawyer has the full file. You submitted preliminary papers claiming incapacity based on erratic behavior. Emails I sent during a stressful period after my divorce. That's not evidence, it's cherry-picking. Martin opened his briefcase, laying out documents. The petition lacks substantial proof under New York law. No medical diagnosis, no recent incidents. Just old complaints twisted to fit a narrative. Linda's face flushed. You're being manipulated by this man. He's using you for his own legal problems. I met her gaze evenly. Alexander isn't the one trying to control my inheritance. You are. Robert stepped closer. We raised you. You deserve nothing more than respect, I cut in, which you lost when you orchestrated that abandonment at the airport. Took my phone, my passport, canceled my ticket. All to push this conservatorship quietly. Angela finally spoke, voice small. We didn't mean for it to go this far. I turned to her. You borrowed my phone for photos. Mom kept my passport for convenience. You all walked away without a word. That was deliberate. Her eyes welled up. Dad said it was the only way to make you see reason. I thought, maybe you'd come back and everything would fix itself. I shook my head slowly. You let them use you. Again. Robert tried to interrupt. Enough. Come home. We'll drop the filing if you sign over management of the condo to us. I pulled out the ultimatum I'd prepared with Martin. Here's my offer. Withdraw the conservatorship petition immediately. Issue a public statement acknowledging it was unfounded. In return, I won't pursue counterclaims for fraud, forgery, or emotional distress. Linda scoffed. You wouldn't dare sue your own family. I looked at each of them. Try me. Angela wiped her eyes, glancing between us. For a second, something flickered, regret, maybe understanding. She opened her mouth, then closed it, stepping back beside her parents. Robert shook his head. You're not the daughter we raised. I'm the daughter you never valued, I said quietly. They turned to leave, Angela hesitating at the door. She looked back, once eyes red, expression raw with something that might have been guilt. Then she followed them out. The door closed behind them. I exhaled, the silence heavy. Martin gathered his papers. I'll file the counter motion today. Alexander emerged from the hallway, arms crossed. You handled that perfectly. I nodded, resolve settling deep. No more waiting for them to do the right thing. We walked back to the study. I sat at the desk, opened my laptop, and began drafting the formal complaint for civil action, fraudulent attempt to gain control of property, emotional manipulation, breach of trust. The decision felt final, necessary. They had chosen their path. Now I chose mine. The court's decision came swiftly. Martin's counter-evidence, medical records confirming no ongoing incapacity, financial statements proving independent, management affidavits from colleagues attesting to my reliability overwhelmed their petition. The judge ruled there was insufficient basis for guardianship under New York standards, dismissing the case outright, and noting the filing appeared motivated more by property concerns than genuine welfare. No penalties were imposed, but the public record spoke volumes. Word spread through old neighborhood circles and mutual acquaintances. Invitations dried up. Former friends distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the optics of attempted control over an adult child's inheritance. My parents lost standing in their retirement community. Whispers followed them at events they once hosted. Angela's professional network caught wind too, subtle shifts in how colleagues viewed her judgment. They no longer had leverage over me or the condo. The property remained mine, alone, untouched. One evening, an email from Angela arrived, subject line simply, "I'm sorry." She wrote about realizing too late how her silence enabled the plan, how guilt kept her up nights, how she wished she'd spoken up that day in the Hamptons. I read it twice, feeling the pull of old bonds. Then I closed the message without replying. Some bridges once burned stay that way. The contract marriage ended precisely on schedule. We filed dissolution papers amicably, no contest, no drama. I retained full control over my public image and assets as agreed. The Hayes name faded from legal documents, but the protection it provided lingered in resolved threats. Alexander prevailed against Nathan as well. Board reviews accepted the period of stability during our arrangement as evidence against claims of ongoing incapacity. Nathan's challenge collapsed, leaving him sidelined in company decisions. We parted as partners turned friends, mutual respect intact, occasional check-ins about projects, but separate lives. I poured energy into launching my own event planning firm. Starting small with referrals from gala contacts, momentum built fast. Corporate launches, nonprofit fundraisers, high-profile weddings bookings filled the calendar within months. The condo in Manhattan became dual-purpose sleek office space for meetings downstairs, private living quarters above. Renovations reflected my taste. Open layouts, neutral tones, large windows flooding rooms with light. Success felt earned, not gifted. Alexander visited once for a consultation on a company retreat I organized. We walked the beach afterward, conversation easy. "You built something solid," he said. "So did you," I replied. No romance lingered, just appreciation for shared survival. Years on the firm's flagship event unfolded at a waterfront venue in the Hamptons. Hundreds of guests, flawless execution, rave reviews already pouring in. I stepped onto the terrace during a quiet moment, ocean breeze carrying salt and evening chill. Waves rolled in steadily, horizon painted in fading gold. Family trust can fracture beyond repair, I realized standing there. But self-worth doesn't depend on bloodlines. Cutting ties wasn't loss, it was liberation. The freedom to define my value, chase ambitions without apology, surround myself with people who choose respect over obligation. That's the real inheritance, knowing when to walk away and building stronger on the other side. If betrayal taught me anything, it's this: broken faith from those closest hurts, deepest yet healing, comes from within. You don't need permission to protect your peace. Sometimes ending a chapter forcefully opens the best ones ahead.